The storm, the sponge, and the breath of the deep, the shelter of the gray rock. The story begins with the wind, not the gentle breeze that cools the olive groves in the heat of the afternoon, but the fury of the Aegean in winter. It is the year 1900, a time when the world stands on the precipice of the modern age. Yet here, in the churning dark waters between Crete and the mainland, time has no meaning. Imagine the sky as a bruised canvas of charcoal and violet. The sea is a restless, heaving creature, its white-capped waves reaching up to drag the clouds down into the deep. In the midst of this liquid chaos, a small wooden cake, a humble boat of sponge divers from the island of Simi, fights for its life. They are seeking shelter. They are looking for a lee, a quiet place to hide from the wrath of Poseidon, and they find it in the shadow of a barren, unforgiving rock, Antikythera. It is a name that sounds like a whisper of stone against stone. It is a place forgotten by the mapmakers, a desolate waypoint where the goats graze on thorns and the cliffs fall sheer into the abyss. The boat tucks itself close to the limestone wall, anchoring in the uneasy calm. The divers wait. Above the waterline, the world is noise. It is the shrieking of the gale in the rigging, the groaning of the timber hull, the lash of the rain. But we are not here for the storm. We are here for what lies beneath it. We shift our gaze downward. We look past the white foam, past the churning green surface, and into the blue. The ocean is a master of silence. No matter how violent the storm rages above, the deep remains untouched. It is a sanctuary of stillness, a kingdom where the light filters down in slow, rhythmic pulses, turning from turquoise to sapphire, and finally, to a deep, heavy indigo. It is here, in this crushing gloom, that the curtain is about to rise on a mystery that has been sleeping for 2,000 years. The storm passes, but the divers do not leave. The sea is calm now, flat as a mirror of polished obsidian. It is time to work. We focus on one man, Elias. He stands on the deck, a silhouette against the rising sun. He is preparing for the ritual of the descent. He is not merely a fisherman, he is an astronaut of the inner world. He dons the heavy canvas suit, stiff with salt. He places the copper collar around his neck, and then, the helmet. The heavy, spherical copper helmet is lowered over his head. It is locked into place with the turn of a wingnut. The world of air, of birds, of voices, is sealed away. Now, there is only the rhythmic hiss, hiss, hiss of the air pump, the lifeline that connects him to the sun. He steps off the ladder. He breaks the surface, and he begins to fall. The graveyard of giants. To descend is to surrender gravity. Elias sinks. The light changes. The warmth of the morning sun vanishes, replaced by the cold embrace of the Mediterranean. He is looking for sponges, the lungs of the ocean, dark, organic shapes clinging to the rocks deep below. He descends past 10 fathoms, past 20, past 30. The pressure builds. It wraps around him like a heavy blanket. The silence of the deep is absolute, broken only by the bubbling of his own breath escaping the valve of his helmet. Bub, bub, bub. Silver spheres of air racing upward to tell the world he is still alive. He reaches the bottom. The seabed here is a landscape of gray silt and jagged rocks, sloping steeply down into the abyss. It is a twilight whirl, a place of shadows and indistinct shapes. Elias walks. His lead-weighted boots kick up clouds of dust that hang in the water like smoke. He scans the gloom, his eyes adjusting to the strange, murky visibility, and then he stops. His heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic drum in the silence. He is not alone. There, emerging from the gloom, are people, giant people. He sees an arm, muscular and strong, reaching up from the sand as if pleading for help. He sees a face, half buried in the silt, lips parted in an eternal cry. He sees the flank of a great horse, frozen in mid-gallop, its marble muscles tense with an energy that has been arrested by the weight of the sea. Elias blinks, shaking his head inside the copper dome. Is this the rapture of the deep? Is this the nitrogen madness that claims the minds of divers who go too deep? He steps closer. He reaches out a gloved hand to touch the arm of the giant. It is cold. It is hard. It is bronze. This is not a hallucination. This is a graveyard, but it is not a graveyard of flesh and bone. It is a graveyard of art, Elias is standing amidst the wreckage of a Roman galley, a wooden leviathan that was smashed against these cliffs 20 centuries ago. It was a ship laden with the finest treasures of the Greek world, statues looted from temples, marble heroes, bronze gods, jewelry meant to adorn the necks of emperors. The ship died here. It broke its back on the rocks and dragged its golden cargo down into the dark. For 2,000 years, the fish have swum through the arms of the statues. The sponges have grown on the faces of the gods. The sand has slowly, patiently buried the glory of a civilization. The tone here is eerie, but reverent. We are witnessing an intrusion into a sleeping world. These statues were never meant to be seen here, in this blue twilight. They were carved to stand in the sun, to be worshipped in temples. Now, they are the guardians of the abyss. Elias pulls the signal line. 3 sharp tugs. He ascends. He rises through the water column, a bubble of fear rising to the surface. When they unscrew his helmet on the deck of the cake, his face is pale, drained of blood. He is trembling. He does not speak of gold. He does not speak of sponges. He looks at the captain with wide, haunted eyes and whispers, "There is a pile of dead women down there." The lump of calcified time. The captain descends to verify the madness. He returns with a bronze arm, and so begins the harvest. For months, the divers risk their lives, plunging again and again into the graveyard. They bring up the marble horses, eroded by the sea worms until they look like driftwood. They bring up the bronze statues, green with oxidation, their glass eyes staring blindly at the sun. The deck of the boat becomes a surreal museum. Gods and monsters lie side by side with wet sponges and tangled ropes. But amidst the glory of the statues, amidst the golden jewelry and the fine pottery, something else is brought up. It is not beautiful. It does not shine. It is a lump. It is a shapeless, calcified mass of rock and rusted metal, no larger than a showbox. It is covered in sea growth, encrusted with barnacles and worm tubes. It looks like nothing. It looks like a piece of debris, a rock that fell from the cliff face. One of the divers picks it up. He weighs it in his hand. It is heavy, yes, but useless. He considers throwing it back into the water. Why keep a rock when there are bronze gods to be found? But something stops him. Perhaps it is a faint glint of green metal beneath the crust. Perhaps it is a whisper of intuition. He tosses it into a wooden crate, along with some broken pottery shards. He does not know it, but he has just saved the most important object in the history of technology. He has held in his hand the mind of the ancients. The ship sails back to Athens. The storm is long gone. The statues are taken to the museum, cleaned and celebrated. Crowds gather to see the youth of Antikythera, the bronze masterpiece. But the lump of rock sits in a courtyard. It sits in the open air, unnoticed, unloved. And as it sits there, the water begins to evaporate. The wood inside the lump shrinks. The calcification dries and becomes brittle. The rust contracts, and deep inside the rock, something cracks. Crack. The outer layer of the stone splits open. Just a fraction. If you had been there, standing in that quiet courtyard in the spring of 1902, and if you had looked closely, very closely into the fissure of the rock, you would have seen it. Not a diamond, not a gold coin, but a tooth. A tiny, perfectly formed, triangular bronze tooth. Part of a gear that should not exist. We end this chapter here, suspended in the moment before the realization. We leave the object sitting in the crate, a sleeping computer disguised as a stone. It is a piece of forbidden knowledge, a ghost of the future trapped in the past, waiting for the eyes of the modern world to widen in disbelief. The ocean kept it safe. The storm revealed it. The sponge diver found it, but the silence of the mechanism is about to be broken. The breath of the deep has released its greatest secret. The bronze heart encased in stone, the orphan in the courtyard. The storm has passed. The ocean has retreated. The deep blue silence of the Mediterranean has been left behind, replaced by the dry, golden heat of the Attic sun. We find ourselves now in Athens. The year is 1902. The setting is a quiet, dust-mote-filled courtyard in the back of the National Archaeological Museum. It is a place of shadows and stillness, away from the eyes of the public. Here, the treasures of the Antikythera wreck have been laid out to rest. The sea has given up its ghosts, and they have been brought here to dry in the warmth of the upper world. Walk with me through the rows of wooden tables. To your left, the marble horses stand proud once more. Though their skin is pockmarked by sea worms, they still hold the nobility of their carving. To your right, the bronze statues of the gods gleam dully, cleaned of their barnacles, their glass eyes staring out at a city that has changed beyond recognition. The gold jewelry, the earrings, the bracelets has been polished until it sings in the light. These are the victors. These are the objects that the world has come to celebrate. They are the beautiful survivors of the shipwreck. But we are not here for the beauty. We are here for the orphan. Walk to the corner of the courtyard. There, sitting unnoticed in a rough pine crate, amidst a pile of broken pottery shards and shapeless debris, sits a lump. It is ugly. It is a deformed mass of calcified rock, corroded bronze, and rotting wood, fused together by the crushing pressure of the deep and the slow chemistry of the seabed. It looks like a tumor of the earth. It is green with verdigris, white with sea growth, and brown with rust. The archaeologists walk past it. They do not stop. Why would they? It looks like nothing more than a piece of the ship's hull that has merged with the rock, a meaningless piece of detritus that was brought up by mistake. It sits there, silent and unloved. But appearances, as the ancients knew, are a veil. The most sacred things are often wrapped in the humblest cloaks. This lump is not a rock. It is a reliquary. Inside this crust of corruption, heart is beating. Not a heart of flesh and blood, but a heart of metal. A heart of pure logic. We sit by the crate and we wait. The process of revelation cannot be rushed. It requires the gentle, invisible hand of the atmosphere. As the days turn into weeks, and the weeks into months, a slow transformation begins to take place. The lump is drying out. For 2,000 years, this object has been saturated with the salt water of the Aegean. Every pore of the wood, every fissure of the stone, was filled with the sea. Now, in the dry air of Athens, the water begins to leave. It is a slow exhalation. The object is breathing out the ocean. As the moisture evaporates, the wood begins to shrink. The calcified crust, which held its shape in the suspension of the water, becomes brittle. The tension builds. The physics of the object are shifting. It is a quiet drama, played out on a microscopic scale, a struggle between the metal and the stone. And then, one quiet afternoon, when the courtyard is empty and the cicadas are singing in the cypress trees, it happens. The silence is broken by a sound. Crack. It is not a loud sound. It is the sound of a dry twig snapping in a forest. It is the sound of a seal breaking. The rock has surrendered. The pressure has become too great. The lump splits open. A fissure runs down its side, and a chunk of the outer crust falls away, crumbling into dust on the bottom of the pine crate. We lean in. We look into the wound of the stone, and there, catching a single beam of the afternoon sun, is a sight that stops the breath. The green geometric ghost. What we see inside the rock is not a bone. It is not a shell. It is not a jewel. It is a circle. But not a natural circle. Nature makes circles. Yes, the pupil of an eye, the shape of the sun, the ripple in a pond. But nature does not make teeth. Embedded in the dark, gray heart of the stone is a gear. It is made of bronze, though it has turned a deep emerald green, the color of the sea that held it for so long. It is precise. It is deliberate. It has triangular teeth cut with a sharpness that defies the erosion of 20 centuries. It is a ghost of the future, trapped in the past. We stare at it, and a feeling of vertigo washes over us. This is the anachronism, the object out of time. Imagine finding a jet engine buried in the tomb of a pharaoh. Imagine finding a microchip embedded in the wall of a cave painting. That is the magnitude of what we are seeing. This gear should not exist. The history books tell us that the ancients were poets, philosophers, warriors, and sculptors. They tell us that they built temples of marble and wrote tragedies on papyrus. But they do not tell us that they built this. This is a machine. We use words like oxidation and corrosion to describe its state, but these are just words for the passage of time. Underneath the green skin of the verdigris, the intelligence of the maker is still intact. Look closely at the teeth of the gear. They are uniform. They are spaced with a mathematical precision that rivals the clockwork of the Renaissance. Yet, this object was forged before the birth of Christ. It was cutting through the fabric of time while Rome was still fighting with swords and shields. It is a frozen sun, a radiant circle of human reason that has survived in a shapeless mass of chaos. The mystery deepens as we realize what this implies. This is not a toy. A toy does not require such precision. A toy does not need to be made of high-grade bronze alloy. This is technology. It is a fragment of a world that we have forgotten. A world where science and the sacred were not enemies, but brothers. We invite the listener to feel the shock of the archaeologist Valerio Stais, who first walked past that crate, stopped, and looked down. Imagine the moment his eyes adjusted to the shadows. Imagine the moment his brain tried to reject what he was seeing. It cannot be, he must have thought. A gear? In a Roman shipwreck. He picked up the fragment. His hands must have trembled. The dust of the calcification coated his fingers. In that moment, the timeline of human history snapped. We like to think of history as a straight line, a ladder that we climb, rung by rung, from primitive ignorance to modern enlightenment. We think we are the smartest people who have ever lived, but this green gear, sitting in the palm of a hand, tells a different story. It tells us that history is a broken circle. It tells us that we have climbed the ladder, fallen off, and forgotten that we ever climbed it. It tells us that there was a golden age of machines, a high summer of the mind, that was swallowed by the dark and lost for 1,000 years. The gear is a witness. It has returned from the dead to humble us. The awakening of the sleeper. The sun moves across the courtyard. The beam of light shifts, illuminating more of the fractured rock. More shapes emerge from the gloom. We see the curve of another gear, smaller, interlocking with the first. We see the faint traces of Greek letters etched into the metal. A manual, a voice, whispering instructions from the grave. The object is no longer an orphan. It is a sleeping king. It sits there in the wooden crate, surrounded by the dust of its own cocoon. It is the sleeping beauty of archaeology, awakened not by a kiss, but by the dry air and the curiosity of a single man. We feel a sense of profound reverence. This is not just metal. This is a thought that was solidified. Someone, 2,000 years ago, had an idea. They looked at the sky, they looked at the math, and they transferred that understanding into bronze. And that thought survived the shipwreck. It survived the crushing pressure. It survived the slow, gnawing hunger of the salt. It is fragile, yes. If you were to drop it, it would shatter into green dust. But the idea of it is indestructible. The narrative slows down to a final, meditative image. We watch the play of light on the emerald teeth of the gear. It glitters faintly. It is the first time in 20 centuries that the sun has touched this metal. The last time this gear saw the light, it was turning. It was alive. It was clicking softly in a wooden box, driven by the hand of a philosopher, predicting the movement of the moon. Then came the darkness, the long, cold, wet silence of the abyss. And now, the light returns. The machine is awake. It is broken, fused, and silent, but it is awake. It has delivered its message. We were here, it says. We knew. The archaeologist gently places the fragment back into the crate. He marks it with a tag. Number 15,087. A mundane number for a miraculous object. The shadows lengthen in the courtyard. The museum grows quiet. The statues of the gods watch in their eternal stillness. But the gear seems to vibrate with a latent energy. It is a seed that has finally sprouted. We leave it there, resting in its bed of pine and dust. The bronze heart encased in stone, a secret kept by the ocean for 2 millennia, now laid bare for the world to wonder at. The mystery has been breached. The outer shell has cracked. And as the sun sets over Athens, painting the Parthenon in shades of violet and gold, we realize that the true journey is just beginning. We have found the key. Now, we must find the door that it opens. Sleep now, in the shadow of the discovery. The gear is safe. The history is safe. The circle is complete. The clockwork of the gods sight beyond sight. We return to the quiet room in the museum. The green, calcified heart of the machine sits before us, silent and broken. To the naked eye, it is a ruin. It is a tragedy of corrosion, a jumble of twisted metal and stone that refuses to yield its secrets. If we were to take a hammer and chisel to it, we would destroy the very thing we seek to understand. The rust holds the truth together. To break the rust is to erase the memory. And so, we must find another way to enter. We must leave our physical bodies behind. We must abandon the limitations of the human eye. We must summon the power of sight beyond sight. Imagine a light, not the yellow light of the sun, nor the white light of the moon, but a light from the invisible end of the spectrum. A beam of pure energy, X-ray, gamma ray, that can pass through stone as if it were smoke. We turn this ghostly lantern upon the object. Slowly, the opaque layers of rock and encrustation begin to dissolve. The calcification fades into a mist. The seaworm tubes vanish. The corrosion becomes transparent, and suddenly, we are falling. We are drifting into the interior of the stone. We are passing through the veil of time, entering the secret, microscopic world of the mechanism. What we see takes our breath away. It is not a single gear. It is not a simple pair of wheels. It is a forest. It is a density of bronze that defies belief. Layer upon layer, wheel upon wheel, axle upon axle. We count them in the silence of our minds. 10, 20, 30 distinct bronze wheels, packed into a space no larger than a mantle clock. They are stacked like pages in a book of metal, pressed together with an efficiency that would shame a modern engineer. This is the anatomy of the machine. We float through the gaps between the gears, navigating the narrow canyons of the device. It is a labyrinth of logic. Every gear is connected. Every tooth is engaged. It is a nervous system made of alloy. The complexity is staggering. This is not a simple toy made to amuse a king. This is a computer. It is a device built to process information, to take the chaos of the natural world and filter it through a mesh of bronze until it becomes order. We are looking at the mind of the ancients, frozen in mid-thought. The ghost of the future. As we drift deeper into the ghostly structure, illuminated by the spectral light of the X-ray, we encounter something that should not be there. It lies at the heart of the main drive. It is a specific arrangement of gears, a large wheel carrying a smaller wheel upon its face, allowing the two to move independently yet in unison. The engineers of our time call this a differential gear. It is a mechanism of profound sophistication. It allows for the subtraction of one motion from another. It is the technology we use in the rear axles of our automobiles to allow the wheels to spin at different speeds when turning a corner. It is a concept we thought was invented in the Industrial Revolution, 1800 years after this ship sank. Yet, here it is. It is sitting in the dark, encrusted with verdigris, mocking our timeline. We pause before this anomaly. We feel the vertigo of history collapsing. How did they know? This mechanism was not reinvented for nearly 2 millennia. For 18 centuries, while empires rose and fell, while cathedrals were built and burned, this concept was lost to the human mind. It slept at the bottom of the sea, waiting. The tone here is one of hushed awe. We are walking through the workshop of a forgotten Einstein of antiquity. Look closer at the teeth of the gears. In our modern world, gears are cut by machines. They are stamped out by lasers and automated lathes. But these were cut by a hand. Visualize that hand. It is steady as stone. It holds a file made of iron or shark skin. It works by the light of an oil lamp. There is no magnifying glass. There is no electricity. There is only the eye and the hand, working in perfect coordination. Each tooth is a perfect equilateral triangle, cut at a 60-degree angle. There are hundreds of them. If the maker had made a single mistake, if one tooth were too wide or too narrow, the entire machine would jam. The rhythm would be broken. The universe in the box would fail. But there are no mistakes. We explore the patience required for this. It is a patience we have lost. It is the patience of the stonecutter, the patience of the monk. It suggests that this object was not a prototype. You do not put this much love into a first draft. This was a masterpiece. It was the culmination of centuries of lost wisdom. It stands on the shoulders of giants whose names we will never know. We ask the silence, how did they calculate the ratios? How did they know that the moon's orbit required a gear with 223 teeth? How did they forge the bronze sheets so flat, so uniform, without rolling mills? The chapter suggests a humbling truth. The ancients were not primitive. They were merely different. They possessed a connection to geometry that we have forgotten. To them, the circle was not just a shape. It was a sacred truth. To them, mathematics was the language of the gods. They did not build machines to conquer the earth. They built machines to mirror the heavens. The symphony of the void we pull back now. We retract our sight beyond sight, floating up from the microscopic canyons of the gears, back to the surface of the stone. The X-ray fades. The object returns to its humble, rocky appearance, but we are changed. We know what lies within. We can no longer see it as a lump of debris. We see it now as it was meant to be seen. Close your eyes. Let the image of the corroded rock fade, and replace it with the image of the machine in its glory. Visualize the bronze, bright and golden, shining in the Mediterranean sun. Visualize the wooden case, polished and inlaid with ivory. And now, let it move. In the theater of your mind, turn the handle on the side of the box. Click. The input gear engages. The motion travels down the drive shaft, splitting, dividing, rippling through the 30 wheels. Can you hear it? It is a silent symphony. It is the sound of pure logic. The large wheel turns once. The smaller wheels turn hundreds of times. The pointers on the face of the dial begin to sweep across the zodiac. The sun moves. The moon moves. The differential gear hums, subtracting the solar year from the lunar month, calculating the phases perfectly. It is a dance. It is the dance of the cosmos, captured in metal. The machine is mimicking the sky. The gears are the planets. The teeth are the days. It spins perfectly in the void of the past. It spins without friction, without wear, without error. We leave the listener with this image. The gears turning, turning, turning in the dark. A clockwork universe that ticks on, even when the civilization that built it has turned to dust. It is a comforting rhythm. It tells us that there is order in the chaos, that the stars above us obey a law, and that once, long ago, we understood that law well enough to hold it in our hands. The machine sleeps in the museum, but in your dreams, it is running. The golden wheels are spinning. The moon is rising. The cycle continues. Sleep now, within the clockwork of the gods. The mirror of the heavens, the dial of eternity. We leave the forest of bronze gears now. We float upwards, out of the microscopic labyrinth, and return to the surface of the object. Imagine the machine not as a lump of rust, but as it was on the day it was finished. It sits on a wooden table in a room filled with the scent of beeswax and papyrus. It is housed in a box of cypress wood, polished to a deep, warm shine. On the front of the box, there is a large, circular dial. This is the face of the machine. But do not mistake it for a clock. A clock is a mundane thing. A clock measures the hours of the market. It tells you when to wake, when to work, when to sleep. It chops the day into nervous little slices. This machine does not care about the hour. It does not count the minutes. It counts the eons. It is a mirror. It was built to catch the reflection of the sky and hold it still. To understand this machine, we must understand the people who built it. For the ancients, the sky was not merely a vacuum filled with burning gas. It was a ceiling of gods. The stars were the riders of fate. The planets were wandering deities: Mars, the red eye of war; Venus, the white lamp of love; Jupiter, the slow-moving king. Their movements dictated the rise and fall of empires, the flooding of the Nile, the health of the harvest. The sky was beautiful, yes, but it was also terrifying. It was a vast, chaotic script written in a language that few could read. To look up was to feel small. To look up was to surrender to the unknown. But the Antikythera Mechanism changed that. It was an act of profound defiance. It was an attempt to reach up, grab the heavens by the hem of their starry robes, and drag them down to earth. It was an attempt to trap the universe in a box. Look at the front dial. It is a masterpiece of concentric circles. On the outer ring, the Egyptian calendar, moving with the slow drift of the year. On the inner ring, the zodiac, the 12 houses of the sky, the ram, the bull, the twins, the crab, and moving across this map are 2 pointers. One is tipped with a sphere of gold. This is the sun. It moves steadily, reliably, marking the passage of the seasons. The other is tipped with a sphere of silver. This is the moon. It chases the sun. It laps the sun. It mimics the eternal dance of the day and the night. But if you watch the silver sphere closely, if you turn the crank and watch the days fly by in seconds, you will notice something strange. Something that defies the rigid logic of a machine. The moon does not move at a constant speed. The anomaly of the breath. The ancients watched the moon with the intensity of lovers. They knew its face. They knew its phases. And they knew its secret. They knew that the moon is fickle. Sometimes, it seems to rush across the sky, as if eager to meet the dawn. Other times, it drags its feet, lingering in the darkness. It speeds up. It slows down. Today, we know why. We know, thanks to Johannes Kepler, that orbits are not perfect circles. They are ellipses. When the moon is close to the Earth, at its perigee, it moves faster. When it is far away at its apogee, it moves slower. But Kepler wrote his laws in the 17th century. The maker of this machine lived 2,000 years before him. And yet, the machine knew. How do you build a gear that changes speed? How do you make a piece of metal, which is rigid and unyielding, mimic the organic, breathing rhythm of a celestial body? We descend again, briefly, behind the face of the dial, to find the answer. It is one of the most brilliant mechanical inventions in human history. It is called the pin and slot mechanism. Imagine two gears, sitting face to face. They turn around slightly different centers. They are not locked together by teeth. Instead, one gear has a pin, a small finger of bronze. The other gear has a slot, a rectangular opening. The pin sits inside the slot. As the gears turn, the pin drives the slot. But because they are turning on different centers, the pin slides back and forth within the opening. When it is close to the center, it drives the gear slowly. When it is further out, it drives it quickly. It creates a stumble in the rotation, a hesitation, a surge. It is a mechanical stutter that perfectly matches the anomaly of the moon. Think of the genius required to conceive of this. To translate an elliptical orbit into bronze wheels. To realize that the heavens are not perfect. And then to build a machine that replicates that imperfection. It is poetic. The machine breathes. It pulses. The silver moon on the front dial does not just tick around the circle. It swims. It accelerates into the perigee and decelerates into the apogee. It is a ghost in the machine, a captured spirit. The language of this dial is the language of the ecliptic. It speaks of the path of the sun. It speaks of the wandering stars. It is a meditation on the concept of variable motion. Life is not constant. Time is not constant. There are days that fly and days that drag. The machine understands this. It creates a model of the universe that is not rigid, but fluid. It mirrors the heartbeat of the sky, the hand of the prophet. Now, I want you to imagine that you are the one holding the box. The room is quiet. The oil lamp flickers. Outside, the real moon is rising over the Parthenon, a distant white disk in the velvet night. But you do not need to look outside. You have the moon in your lap. You reach out your hand. You take the bronze crank that protrudes from the side of the wooden case. The metal is cool against your skin. You begin to turn it. Whir. The sound is soft. A whisper of metal on metal. Inside, the 30 gears wake up. The pin slides in the slot. The differential hums. And on the face of the dial, time begins to flow. You are no longer a passive observer of the universe. You are its driver. You turn the crank, and the sun moves forward. The moon chases it. You watch the days blur into weeks. You watch the months blur into years. You are traveling through time. You can spin the dial forward to see where the moon will be 10 years from now. You can spin it backward to see where the sun was on the day you were born. You hold the power of prophecy in your hand. In the ancient world, this was magic. To know the future was the province of the oracles, the women who inhaled the vapors of the earth and spoke in riddles. But this machine does not speak in riddles. It speaks in certainty. It tells you, with mathematical precision, exactly where the gods will be. It is a tool of control. Human beings have always feared the chaos of the night sky. We fear the darkness. We fear the unknown changes of the cosmos. But when you hold the mechanism, the fear vanishes. The chaos is contained. The sky is reduced to a set of gears that you can turn with your own fingers. You have made the universe predictable. You have made it safe. As you turn the crank, Watching the gold sun and the silver moon dance their eternal waltz, you feel a sense of profound peace. The universe is not a wild, untamed beast. It is a clockwork. It is a song with a rhythm that can be learned. And you are the conductor. The listener, lying in the dark, can feel this sense of ordered calm. The turning of the crank becomes a lullaby. The motion of the moon becomes a rocking cradle. We leave the machine there, on the table of the ancient scholar. The crank stops turning. The silver moon comes to rest in the house of the bull. The gold sun rests in the house of the ram. The mirror reflects the sky. The sky reflects the mirror. And in the silence between the two, we find our rest. The universe is held safe in the box, and you are held safe in the night. Sleep now, under the watch of the bronze moon. The prophet of the shadow, the dragon, and the sun. We turn the wooden box around now. We leave the golden sun and the silver moon of the front dial, and we look at the back of the mechanism. Here, the wood is darker, the bronze is etched deeper. Here lies the shadow. To understand the power of this side of the machine, we must first remember the fear. Close your eyes and imagine the world as it was 2,000 years ago. Imagine a day of perfect blue skies over the Aegean Sea. The waves are gentle. The olive trees shimmer in the heat. The sun is a benevolent god, the source of all warmth, all light, all life. And then, without warning, the wound opens in the sky. A bite is taken out of the sun. A black disk begins to consume the light. The birds stop singing. The cicadas fall silent. The temperature drops, sending a sudden, ghostly chill across the skin. The light turns a sickly, metallic gray, and the shadows on the ground become sharp and strange. To the ancient mind, this was not a quirk of orbital mechanics. It was a catastrophe. It was the dragon eating the sun. It was the anger of Zeus. It was the disruption of the divine order. An eclipse was an omen that toppled kings. It stopped wars. It sent entire fleets of ships running for the safety of the harbor. It was a moment when the cosmic machinery seemed to break, when the protection of the heavens was stripped away. Fear is the child of the unknown. When you do not know when the darkness is coming, you live in a permanent state of anxiety. You watch the sky with suspicion, but in a quiet room, filled with the scent of dried parchment and oil, there was one man who did not fear. He sat before the mechanism. He turned the bronze crank. He watched the gears spin in the silence. He was the prophet of the shadow. He did not need to look at the sky to know the darkness was coming. He did not need to consult the flight of birds or the entrails of a sacrifice. He looked at the spiral. The serpent of time, the back of the Antikythera Mechanism, is dominated by a shape that is ancient and sacred. It is not a circle. It is a spiral. A long, serpentine groove curls inward, round and round, like the shell of a nautilus or the coil of a sleeping snake. It draws the eye down into the center, into the abyss of the calculation. This is the sorrow cycle. The ancients had watched the sky for long enough to realize that the shadows possessed a rhythm. They knew that the eclipses were not random. They danced to a beat of 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. It is a long, slow heartbeat of the universe. The mechanism captured this rhythm in bronze. The spiral dial is divided into 223 tiny sections. Each section represents a month in the cycle. Imagine the needle of the machine. It is a small, delicate finger of metal, resting in the groove of the spiral. As the user turns the crank, as the days and months fly by, the needle travels along the coil. It journeys inward, deeper and deeper into the maze of time. Most of the months are empty. The needle passes over them in silence. These are the months of light, the months of safety. But then, the needle strikes a specific mark, a glyph, a symbol etched into the metal. The machine is speaking. It is whispering a warning. Here, it says, in this month, at this hour, the shadow will fall. Is a profound realization. This machine transformed the terrifying, unpredictable dragon into a predictable, mechanical event. It put a leash on the eclipse. By mapping the spiral, the maker of the machine declared that there is no chaos in the heavens. There is only a pattern that is too long for a human life to perceive, but short enough for a gear to measure. The colors of the wind. We lean closer to the bronze plate. The corrosion of the sea has tried to erase the writing, but the sight beyond sight reveals the truth. The glyphs are not just markers of time. They are descriptions. The machine does not just say when. It says what. We see the Greek letter sigma, Selene, the moon. This marks a lunar eclipse, when the Earth casts its shadow on the moon. We see the letter Ta, Helios, the sun. This marks the solar eclipse, the terrifying day of darkness. But look closer. There are other words hidden in the rust. Words that send a shiver of wonder through the modern mind. Malus, black. Pyros, fire red. Phaos, gray. The machine predicted the color of the eclipse. It knew that sometimes the moon would turn the color of blood. It knew that sometimes the sun would vanish into a hole of absolute ink. It even predicted the direction of the wind during the event. How? How could a box of gears know the color of a shadow 18 years in the future? It is a mystery that borders on magic. It suggests a mastery of atmospheric cycles that we have lost. It suggests that they saw the sky not as a flat sheet, but as a three-dimensional depth of air and moisture, all moving in a great, predictable clockwork. This machine was an oracle, but compare it to the oracle at Delphi. At Delphi, the Pythia sat on a tripod over a crack in the earth. She breathed in the hallucinogenic vapors. She shrieked. She spoke in riddles that could be interpreted in 1,000 ways. A great empire will fall, she might say, without saying which empire. The Pythia was the oracle of chaos. The mechanism is the oracle of order. It speaks in the cold, hard language of mathematics. It offers no riddles. It offers coordinates. It offers the hour. It offers the color. There is a deep emotional comfort in this precision. In a world ruled by capricious gods, who might strike you down for a perceived insult, the machine offers a sanctuary of certainty. It says, the universe is not angry with you. The universe is simply turning. The certainty of the quiet room. And now, let us travel to the moment of the event. The date has arrived. The needle on the spiral has reached the glyph of the fire-red moon. Outside, in the marketplace of Rhodes, the people are going about their day. They are selling fish. They are debating philosophy. They are unaware, but in the study, the owner of the mechanism sits quietly. He has known this moment was coming for 100 years. The gears told him. The spiral told him. He walks to the window. He looks up. And there, exactly on time, the shadow begins to bite. Panic erupts in the street below. Men fall to their knees. Priests rush to the temples to burn incense. The birds go silent. The air turns cold. But the watcher at the window does not tremble. He does not pray. He feels a profound sense of awe. But it is not the awe of fear. It is the awe of recognition. He is seeing the gears of the cosmos mesh with the gears in his box. He is witnessing the synchronization of the earth and the metal. The shadow falls over the marble cities of Greece. It sweeps across the white columns of the Parthenon. It darkens the sea. The world is plunged into twilight. But inside the room, there is a light that does not go out. It is the light of knowledge. The machine rests on the table. It has done its work. It has predicted the darkness, and in doing so, it has taken the power away from the dark. The eclipse passes. The sun returns. The birds begin to sing again. The world exhales. But the spiral continues. The needle moves on, inching toward the next shadow. 18 years away, we leave the machine there, in the quiet aftermath of the event. It is a vessel of absolute truth. It is the prophet that never sleeps, the eye that never blinks. It holds the rhythm of the shadows in its bronze heart, spinning slowly, endlessly, creating certainty in an uncertain world. Sleep now. The shadow has passed. The gears are watching the night. The games and the passage of human time, the dial of the dust. We turn our eyes now from the vast, terrifying abyss of the eclipse. We look away from the spiral of the shadow, away from the cold mathematics of the sun and the moon. We lower our gaze on the face of the mechanism, tucked away in a quiet corner of the bronze plate. There is a smaller dial. It is humble compared to the great spirals. It does not track the dragons of the sky. It does not predict the anger of the gods. It tracks the sweat of men. This is the Olympiad dial. It is divided into 4 simple sectors, each one marked with a name that echoes through the corridors of history like a trumpet blast softened by distance. Ismia, Nemea, Pythia, Olympia. Here, the machine touches the earth. Until now, we have seen the Antikythera Mechanism as a cosmic computer, a device built to converse with the stars. But the maker of this machine understood a profound truth, that we do not live only in the cosmos. We live in the dust. We live in the heat of the summer and the rain of the winter. We live in the rhythm of our festivals, our gatherings, and our games. The machine did not just care about the movement of Mars and Jupiter. It cared about the foot races in the valley of Olympia. It cared about the wrestling match in the pine groves of Isthmia. It cared about the chariot wheels turning in the shadow of Delphi. This dial grounds us. It reminds us that the machine was not an alien artifact dropped from the sky. It was a human object, built by human hands, to measure human time. Close your eyes and let the silence of the museum fade. Let the scent of the ocean fade. Replace it with a new scent. It is the smell of dry earth baking in the Mediterranean sun. It is the sharp, green scent of crushed wild celery. It is the smell of olive oil, rubbed into skin to protect it from the heat. It is the smell of laurel leaves drying in the wind. We are entering the cycle of the games. To the ancient mind, the games were not merely sport. They were a ritual. They were a way of keeping time. You did not say, "I was born in the year 480. You said, "I was born in the 75th Olympiad." When Theogenes won the boxing crown, the games were the clock of the culture, and so, the machine had to track them. The small, golden needle on this dial would tick forward, once every year, moving from one sector to the next. Click. The year of Nemea, click. The year of Isthmia, click. The year of Pythia, click. The year of Olympia was a slow, 4-year heartbeat, a rhythm that beat beneath the noise of wars and the rise of kings. A rhythm that promised that no matter what happened in the world, the runners would return to the starting line. The circle of the truce let us walk into that memory. Visualize the stadium at Olympia, but do not see it as a ruin. See it as it was on the morning of the opening ceremony. The stadium is not a building of stone seats. It is a simple grassy bank, carved into the side of a hill. The track is a long rectangle of packed clay, pale and dusty. The air is thick with anticipation. But there is a silence here too. It is the silence of the truce. This is the deepest secret of the Olympiad dial. It was not just a calendar of sport. It was a calendar of peace. In the ancient world, the cities of Greece were often at war. Sparta fought Athens. Thebes fought Corinth. The spears were always sharp. The shields were always heavy. But when the needle on the mechanism approached the sector of Olympia, signal went out. Heralds, the spondophoroi, were sent across the land, carrying the staff of the gods. They announced the Ikacheria, the holding of hands, the Olympic truce. For 1 month, the wars had to stop. The armies had to stand down. The roads were declared safe for all travelers. A soldier could not touch his sword. A general could not order a march. The machine tracked this. Think of the power of that small bronze gear. As it turned, it commanded the world to be at peace. It carved out a sanctuary in time where enemies could stand next to each other, not to kill, but to watch a man throw a discus against the sky. It is a gentle, melancholy reminder. We often think of the ancients as brutal, ruled by blood and conquest. Yet, they built a machine that had a specific gear dedicated to the pause of war. They understood that life requires a breath. The tone of this dial is nostalgic. It speaks of a time when the world was smaller, when a foot race could stop an army. We watched the needle move to the sector of Delphi, the Pythian Games. Here, the prize was not gold, but a wreath of laurel leaves. At Nemea, it was a crown of wild celery. At Isthmia, a wreath of pine. These prizes were worthless in the market. You could not buy bread with withered leaves. But that was the point. The value was not in the object. The value was in the honor. The value was in the moment of standing in the center of the circle, while the roar of the crowd washed over you like a wave, and knowing that for 1 brief second you were touched by the divine. The machine remembered these moments. Even when the stadium was empty, even in the years between the games, the gear held the memory of the glory. It held the promise that the crowds would return. We reflect here on the concept of time as a circle. For us, in the modern world, Time is an arrow. It flies straight and fast into the future. We are obsessed with progress, with the new, with the next. We leave the past behind. But for the people who built this machine, time was a wheel. The stars returned to their places. The seasons returned to the fields. The souls returned to the earth. And the games returned to Olympia. It was the eternal return. The mechanism is the physical embodiment of this philosophy. There is no end to the dial. When the needle reaches the end of the 4th year, it does not stop. It simply crosses the line and begins again at year 1. It suggests that nothing is ever truly lost. The summer will come back. The peace will come back. The joy will come back. It is a comforting thought for the weary heart. We are not racing toward a finish line. We are dancing in a circle. The last crown. The sun begins to set over the valley of Olympia. The shadows of the limestone columns stretch long across the dusty track. The roar of the crowd has faded into the echo of history. The athletes have gone home. The olive oil has been washed from their skin. The laurel wreaths have turned to dust and blown away on the wind. But in the quiet room, inside the wooden box, the needle is still waiting. The civilization that built it fell. The Romans came, and then the Byzantines. The statues were toppled. The temples were burned. The games were banned by an emperor who saw them as pagan rituals. The cycle was broken. Or was it? Deep in the ocean, inside the sunken ship, the mechanism lay in the dark. And even there, amidst the silence of the seabed, the potential for the cycle remained. The gear was still engaged. The ratio was still true. If you were to turn the handle today, the Olympiad dial would still spin. It would still mark the 4 years. It would still point to the sector of the truce. The machine did not forget. We end this chapter with the sense of sacred uncertainty. Perhaps the games never really ended. Perhaps the ritual of gathering, of striving, of pausing our conflicts to marvel at the limits of the human body, perhaps that is etched into our DNA, just as the gears are etched into the bronze. We see the small, golden needle catching the last light of the day. It is a tiny thing, a sliver of metal, but it carries the weight of human hope. It reminds us that even in the face of the vast, cold universe, in the face of the eclipses and the orbits of giant planets, the small rituals of humanity matter. Our foot traces matter. Our olive wreaths matter. Our moments of peace matter. The machine creates a bridge between the stars and the sand. It tells us that we belong to both. We are made of stardust, yes, but we are also made of earth, and both deserve to be measured. The needle clicks one last time. The cycle is complete. The wheel turns, and the silence of the stadium becomes the silence of your room. Rest now, in the circle of time. The race is over. The truce is held. Sleep. The solitary watcher in the workshop, the ghost without a name. History remembers the names of the kings who destroyed cities. It remembers the generals who commanded armies of 10,000 men. It remembers the poets who sang of anger and of love. Their names are carved into the marble of our memory. But history has a way of forgetting the quiet ones. It forgets the hands that built the stage upon which the kings stood. It forgets the minds that calculated the weight of the stone. We stand now before the greatest mystery of the Antikythera Mechanism. We have seen the gears. We have seen the eclipse dial. We have seen the calendar of the games. But we have not seen the face of the maker. Who was he? There is no signature etched into the bronze. There is no plaque on the wooden case that says, "I made this." The identity of the genius who conceived of this machine has been washed away by the salt of the sea. So, let us enter the workshop of the mind. Let us close our eyes and drift back across the centuries, guided only by the whispers of probability. We are floating over the Mediterranean at night. Perhaps we are drifting toward the island of Rhodes, the home of the astronomers, where the stars were watched with obsessive devotion. Or perhaps we are drifting toward Syracuse, the city of circles and sand. We find a window. It is high in a stone tower, overlooking a harbor where the triremes bob gently on the dark water. Inside, a single oil lamp is burning. The flame flickers, casting long, dancing shadows against the limestone walls. The room smells of ancient industry. It smells of hot beeswax, used to cast the molds. It smells of bitter copper oxide and metallic dust. It smells of dried parchment and the salt air drifting in from the sea. And there, Bent over a workbench of scarred oak, is the solitary watcher. He is an old man. His beard is trimmed close, flecked with gray like iron filings. His robe is stained with ink and grease. He is not a priest. He is not a politician. He is something rarer. He is an architect of the invisible. We watch him work. The room is silent, save for the rhythmic sound of a tool against metal. Shh, shh, shh. He is holding a small disc of bronze. It is rough, fresh from the forge. In his other hand, he holds a file, but it is not a file of steel. It is a file made from the dried, rough skin of a shark. With infinite patience, he is shaping a tooth. He is taking a piece of raw metal and teaching it mathematics. He is carving an equilateral triangle into the edge of the wheel. He pauses. He holds the gear up to the lamp. He squints, checking the angle against the light. It must be perfect. If this tooth is off by the width of a human hair, the moon will not rise on time. The eclipse will be late. The universe will break. He sighs, lowers the gear, and resumes his filing. Shh, shh, shh. This is the sound of genius in the dark, the loneliness of the long night. We explore now the burden of this mind. Was it Archimedes, the man who claimed he could move the earth if only he had a place to stand? Or was it Posidonius, the Stoic philosopher who built spheres to mimic the sun? Or was it a nameless master, a man whose fame sank with the ship, leaving no ripple in the history books? It does not matter what we call him. What matters is his solitude. To build this machine, one had to hold the entire universe in one's head. Imagine the loneliness of that. While the rest of the city slept, while the merchants dreamed of gold and the soldiers dreamed of glory, the maker was awake. He was on the roof of his tower, shivering in the cold wind, watching the moon. He watched it night after night, year after year. He watched it wax and wane. He watched it speed up as it swung close to the earth, and slow down as it drifted away. He marked its position on a scroll of parchment. A dot for tonight, a dot for tomorrow, a curve of ink that stretched out over decades. He was translating the sky into paper. But that was only the beginning. The true miracle, the act of magic, was the next step. He had to translate the paper into metal. He had to look at that organic, breathing curve of the moon's orbit and ask, how do I make a rock do that? How do I make a rigid piece of bronze mimic the hesitation of a celestial body? We see him sitting at his desk, surrounded by scraps of papyrus covered in geometry. Circles overlapping circles, triangles dissecting arcs. He is wrestling with the concept of the pin and slot. He is inventing the differential gear 18 centuries before it is supposed to exist. He is a man living out of time. He is a time traveler stranded in his own era. He looks around him and sees a world of swords and sandals, a world of superstition and fear. But in his mind, he is living in a world of mechanics, of logic, of predictable orbits. Did he have apprentices? Perhaps. Young men who swept the floor and stoked the fire. But could they understand him? Could they see what he saw? Or did they just see a crazy old man, muttering to his wheels, obsessed with the idea that the gods were actually gears? The emotional focus of this chapter is on the intimacy of creation. There is a profound sadness in being ahead of your time. You are building a message for a future that has not yet arrived. You are writing a letter to a ghost. The maker must have known, deep in his heart, that this object was fragile. He must have known that once it left his workshop, it would be entering a world of chaos. He was building a vessel of perfect order to set sail on a sea of disorder. He files the bronze. He polishes the wood. He fits the tiny golden pointer onto the face of the dial. He is not doing it for money. The price of such a thing is incalculable. He is doing it because he has seen the truth of the universe, and he cannot rest until he has given it a physical form. He is trying to save the sky. He is trying to lock the stars in a box so that they can never be lost. The first turn of the universe, the night is deep. The oil in the lamp is running low. The work is done. The gears are assembled. The 30 bronze wheels are stacked in their complex tower, mingling and meshing in the dark heart of the box. The pin is in the slot. The differential is aligned. The maker wipes his hands on a rag. He cleans the ink and the oxide from his fingers. He stands up. He walks to the wooden case. It sits on the table, smelling of fresh polish. It is beautiful. It is simple. A wooden box with a bronze face. He reaches out. He takes the crank in his hand. This is the moment of birth. For years, this machine has existed only in his mind. Now, it exists in the world. He takes a breath. He turns the handle. There is no grinding, no hesitation. The sharkskin file has done its work. The fit is perfect. Whir, soft, fluid sound fills the quiet room. It is the sound of 1,000 hours of labor coming together in a single second of motion. The maker watches the face of the dial. The golden sun begins to move. The silver moon begins to chase it. The needle on the eclipse dial begins to creep along the spiral. The needle on the game's dial clicks toward Olympia. It works. The universe obeys his command. He turns the crank faster. The days fly by. He watches the moon slow down at its apogee and speed up at its perigee. It breathes. It is alive. He stops the crank. The machine falls silent. A smile touches the old man's lips. It is not a smile of triumph. It is a smile of relief. He has done it. He has proven that the chaos is an illusion. He has proven that there is a rhythm to the shadows. He walks to the window and looks out at the sea. The dark water stretches out to the horizon, vast and indifferent. Somewhere out there, a ship is waiting. A Roman galley, perhaps, destined for the bottom of the ocean. He does not know that his masterpiece is doomed. He does not know that it will sink. He does not know that it will lie in the mud for 2,000 years, forgotten by the world. And perhaps, it is better that he does not know. For in this moment, in the quiet of the workshop, the machine is perfect. It is safe. It is understood. The maker blows out the lamp. The room plunges into darkness, but the machine is still there. A silent watcher in the dark, a bronze heart that holds the secret of the stars. We leave the maker there, standing in the shadows, listening to the sound of the sea that will eventually claim his name, but will never quite destroy his work. The silence returns. The workshop fades. The dream begins. Sleep now, with the memory of the hands that built the sky. The whispers on the face of the deep, the library of rust. We have looked at the gears. We have looked at the dials. We have looked at the wood. Now, we must look closer. We must bring our eyes down to the very skin of the machine. Imagine the surface of the bronze plates, recovered from the crushing pressure of the seabed. To the casual eye, they are ruin. They are scabs of corrosion, mottled with green verdigris and white calcium, eaten away by the slow, relentless chemistry of the salt. But if you tilt the metal just so, if you let the light graze the surface at a shallow angle, something emerges from the chaos. They are not scratches. They are not the random marks of erosion. They are letters, thousands of them, etched into the bronze with a needle as fine as a human hair. Crowding every spare millimeter of the surface is a text. It covers the front door of the box. It covers the back door. It covers the spaces between the dials. This is the voice of the machine. It is barely visible to the naked eye. These are whispers on the face of the metal. They are a microscopic testament, a library written on the head of a pin, preserved beneath the mud for 20 centuries. We lean in. We hold our breath. We try to read the rust. It is not a spell. It is not a prayer to Poseidon to keep the ship safe. It is not a dedication to a king. It is something far more humble, and perhaps far more profound. It is a user manual. Think of the humility of that. The maker of this masterpiece, the genius who captured the heavens in a box, sat down at his bench and painstakingly scratched out instructions for the person who would hold it next. He did not want his creation to be a mystery. He wanted it to be understood. He wrote down the rules of the universe, letter by tiny letter, carving his knowledge into the alloy so that it would not be forgotten. But the ocean had other plans. The ship went down. The bronze was buried. The letters were choked by the silt. For 2,000 years, the machine screamed its instructions into the silence of the deep. It explained the stars to the crabs and the sponges. It whispered the secrets of the sun to the cold, dark currents of the Aegean. And now, as we read the fragments that remain, we are not just reading technical Greek. We are reading a tragedy. The lost reader let us listen to the voice. It comes to us in pieces, broken by the gaps where the metal has dissolved entirely. It is a voice that speaks in the rhythmic, sibilant sounds of ancient Greek. The sphere of the sun. The pointer moves. The little sphere. The tone is literary, yet precise. It is fragmentary, like poetry found in a bottle washed up on a lonely shore. We read the text. The color is black. If the wind blows from the west. We read the text. The star Arcturus rises. We explore the tragedy of the lost reader. Who is this manual written for? Was it for a wealthy merchant in Rome? A man who loved philosophy and wanted to hold the cosmos in his study? Was it for a young student in Syracuse, eager to learn the ways of the planets? Was it for a general, needing to know the omens before a campaign? We will never know. The manual was written for someone who would never receive it. The eyes that were meant to read these words never saw them. The hands that were meant to follow these instructions never touched the crank. The message was sent, but the line was cut. Reflect for a moment on the fragility of knowledge. We assumed that wisdom is permanent. We assumed that once a discovery is made, it belongs to humanity forever. But here is the proof that it does not. This machine contained knowledge about the variable motion of the moon, about the Saros cycle, about the true nature of eclipses. And it was all written down. It was explained. And then, in a single afternoon of bad weather, in a single strike of a hull against a rock, it was erased. The manual became a palimpsest of mud. How easily words are lost. How easily the context fades. If the sponge divers had not found this lump of rock in 1900, if Elias had not seen the bronze arm sticking out of the sand, this voice would have remained silent until the end of time. The text hidden in the rust is the last testament of a worldview that is gone. It is a window into a mind that saw the cosmos as a machine, a beautiful, predictable, understandable engine, and the writing itself. It is so human. The scribe made mistakes. We can see places where the needle slipped, or where a letter was crowded because he ran out of space. We can sense the urgency of the writer. He wanted to get it all down. He wanted to be clear. And upon the dial, the golden circle, he is speaking to us. He is reaching out across the abyss of time, trying to guide our hands. The echo in the room. We imagine the voice of the narrator reading the ancient Greek now. The syllables are soft. They float in the dark space of your room, bridging the gap between the sunken ship and the present moment. Sphera, Helios, Selene. The words detach themselves from the corroded metal. They rise up like bubbles from the seabed. They drift through the layers of time, breaking the surface of the present day. The machine is broken. The gears are fused. The wood is gone, but the instructions remain. In reading them, we become the lost reader. The package has finally been delivered. It arrived 2,000 years late, covered in barnacles and rust, but it arrived. We are the ones who were meant to read it. We are the ones who now understand that the pointer moves. We are the ones who know that the little sphere represents the moon. We are the ones who can see the color of the eclipse. The knowledge was not lost. It was merely delayed. There is a deep emotional closure in this realization. The solitary watcher in the workshop, filing his bronze gears by lamplight, did not work in vain. His desire to communicate, to explain, to teach, it survived the death of his civilization. It survived the fall of Rome. It survived the Dark Ages. It survived the crushing weight of the ocean. It survived to be whispered into your ear tonight. The text fades. The letters recede back into the verdigris. The bronze plates grow dim, but the voice echoes. It tells us that the universe is knowable. It tells us that we can understand the stars. It tells us that even when the light goes out, and the ship sinks, and the silence descends, the words remain. The whispers on the face of the deep have been heard. The message is received. The book is closed. The ocean takes it back. Rest now in the quiet certainty of the knowledge. Sleep. The 1,000-year silence, the breaking of the chain. The ship has settled now. The violent groaning of the timber hull as it smashed against the rocks of Antikythera has ceased. The screams of the sailors have faded into the wind. The bubbles of air, released from the drowning hold, have all risen to the surface and burst. Down here, 50 meters beneath the waves, there is only the heavy, pressing weight of the water. The silt, stirred up by the impact, slowly begins to drift back down. It settles like a soft, gray snow over the wreckage. It covers the face of the marble statues. It coats the bronze arms of the warriors, and it buries the wooden box. The Antikythera Mechanism sits at an angle, half wedged under a rotting beam. The salt water is already beginning to seep into the wood, dissolving the glue, darkening the cypress, and just like that, the light goes out. It is not just the light of the sun that vanishes, it is the light of the mind. We stand at the precipice of the great gap. It is a terrifying thing to contemplate, here in the quiet of the night. We like to believe that history is a ladder. We believe that we climb it rung by rung, century by century, always getting smarter, always building better machines, always reaching higher toward the stars. But this shipwreck tells a different story. This shipwreck tells us that the ladder can break. When this ship went down, it did not just take gold and statues to the bottom. It took a thought. It took a specific, brilliant understanding of the universe, and it locked it away in the dark, and no one came to retrieve it. The maker of the machine likely died without passing on the secret. The diagrams were lost. The prototypes were melted down for swords or coins. And so, the chain of knowledge was broken. Above the waves, the world continued to turn, but it turned slower. The gears of human progress ground to a halt. Watch the centuries fly by in the time-lapse of the mind. We see the great marble cities of Rome begin to crumble. We see the aqueducts run dry, their arches broken like ribs against the sky. We see the roads, once straight and paved, consumed by the grass. We see the libraries burn. It is the great tragedy of the ancient world. The scroll of papyrus is a fragile thing. It cannot survive the fire. It cannot survive the damp. The wisdom of 1,000 years, the mathematics of Archimedes, the star charts of Hipparchus, the blueprints of the mechanical universe turns to ash and smoke. The smoke rises into the sky and dissipates, and with it goes the memory of the gear, the return to the elements while the machine sleeps in the mud. Encased in a coffin of slowly growing rock, humanity forgets. We forget how to calculate the ellipse. We forget how to predict the color of the eclipse. We forget that the universe is a machine, and because we have forgotten the bronze, we must return to the elements. We go back to the water. In the market squares of the medieval world, time is no longer measured by the precise clicking of teeth. It is measured by the clepsydra, the water clock. We watch the water drip, drop by drop, from one vessel to another. It is a wet, messy, inaccurate time. It evaporates in the heat. It freezes in the cold. It flows at the whim of gravity, not the command of logic. We go back to the shadow. We plant sticks in the ground and watch the darkness move across the dust. But the sundial works only when the sun shines. When the clouds come, time disappears. We go back to the sand. We turn the hourglass, watching the grain slip through the narrow waste of glass. It is a symbol of our own mortality, a reminder that our time is running out, but it tells us nothing of the stars. It tells us nothing of the moon. The atmosphere of this era is one of loss and shadow. It is the long twilight of the Dark Ages. Imagine the monasteries of Europe, lit by tallow candles. Monks sit at desks, copying out scriptures by hand, preserving what little they can of the Latin past. They are the keepers of the flame, but the flame is dim. They do not know that beneath the sea, a computer lies rusting. They do not know that 1,000 years ago, men had already solved the problems they are struggling with. They are trying to calculate the date of Easter using clumsy tables and guesswork, while the answer lies perfectly preserved in a bronze spiral at the bottom of the Aegean. The silence of the seabed is matched by the silence of the mind. There are faint echoes, of course. In the golden cities of the East, in Baghdad and Damascus, the astronomers keep watching. They build astrolabes, beautiful plates of brass that map the stars. In Gaza, great clocks are built with moving figures. In Byzantium, sundials become works of art, but they are shadows. They lack the heart. They lack the differential gear. They lack the pin and slot. They are brilliant attempts to climb back up the ladder, but they are starting from the bottom. They are reinventing the wheel, quite literally. While the master blueprint dissolves in the salt, it is a meditation on how fragile progress really is. We are not always moving forward. Sometimes we slide back. Sometimes, a storm comes and washes away the sandcastle, and we have to start building again from nothing. The Antikythera Mechanism is the proof of the slide. It is a ghost from a future that never happened. The world that could have been. We hover over the wreck, suspended in the blue gloom. The machine is unrecognizable now. It has become a rock. The sea worms have built their tubes upon it. The coral has claimed it. It has merged with the seabed. And above it, 1,000 years pass. 1 millennium. Think of the weight of that time. 10 centuries of silence. 10 centuries where the differential gear did not exist. We are left with the haunting sense of, what if? What if the storm had missed the ship? What if the captain had steered a degree to the east, bypassing the rock of Antikythera? What if the ship had sailed safely into the harbor of Rome? Imagine the crate being unloaded. Imagine the machine being brought to the Senate, or to the study of a great philosopher. Imagine the copies being made. If the Romans had possessed this technology, if they had understood that bronze could do the work of the mind, where would we be now? Perhaps the Industrial Revolution would have started under the Caesars. Perhaps the steam engine would have been built in Athens. Perhaps we would have reached the moon 1,000 years earlier. Maybe we would be sailing the stars by now, navigating the galaxy with the same confidence that the ancients navigated the Mediterranean. But the ship did not make it. The rock was waiting. The storm was hungry. And so, the timeline split. We took the long road. We took the road of the water clock and the hourglass. We took the road of the dark ages. The silence of the seabed answers our questions with a cold, indifferent weight. The ocean does not care about our progress. It does not care about our lost potential. It only cares about the stillness. It holds the machine in its arms, rocking it gently in the currents, slowly turning the bronze back into mineral, dust to dust, metal to ore. The great gap yawns wide, a chasm of lost time that can never be filled. And yet, there is a strange peace in this tragedy. The machine was not destroyed. It was merely paused. It waited for us. It waited until we had climbed back up the ladder on our own, until we had reinvented the gears and the calculus, until we were ready to understand it again. It slept through the darkness so that it could wake up in the light, but for those 1,000 years, there was only silence. The gear stopped turning. The moon stopped rising in the box. The dragon ate the sun, and no one knew when it would return. We leave the machine there, in the deep, quiet dark of the Middle Ages, buried, forgotten, but dreaming. Sleep now. The long wait has begun. The universe in a wooden box, the geometry of fate. We come now to the heart of the mystery. We have peeled back the layers of corrosion. We have counted the gears. We have read the whispers on the bronze. But there is one final door to open. It is not a door made of wood or metal. It is a door made of thought. Let us return to the image of the object as it sat on the table of the philosopher. It was a box, a simple casing of cypress wood, polished by the touch of hands, smelling of resin and age. It was small enough to carry under one arm. It was light enough to be lifted by a child. And yet, inside this box, there was everything. The sun was there. The moon was there. The wandering stars Mars, Jupiter, Saturn were spinning in their dark orbits. The eclipses were waiting in the spiral. The games of Olympia were waiting in the dial. It was the universe in a box. And this leads us to a question that has haunted the human mind since the first time we looked up at the night sky and wondered, why? If the universe can be modeled by gears, if the future of the heavens can be predicted with absolute 100% accuracy, what does that say about us? If the maker of the machine knew exactly where the moon would be in 500 years, down to the very degree of the arc, does that mean the moon has no choice? And if the moon has no choice, do we? This chapter is a meditation on the philosophy of the stone and the wheel. It is an exploration of the ancient idea of fate. In the time when this machine was built, the great thinkers of the Stoics taught that the world was not a place of chaos. They taught that it was a machine. They believed that the cosmos was a single, living organism, bound together by a divine fire, a logos, a reason that permeated every atom of existence. They believed in the great chain of being, cause and effect, action and reaction. The Antikythera Mechanism is the physical proof of their belief. It is a sermon cast in bronze, Look at the gears again. Look at how they touch. One tooth pushes against another. There is no gap. There is no hesitation. There is no room for randomness. When the great drive wheel turns, the smaller wheels must turn. They cannot decide to stop. They cannot decide to spin backward. They are bound by the geometry of their design. This is the philosophy of determinism. To the modern mind, obsessed with freedom and will, this might sound like a prison. We want to be the captains of our souls. We want to believe that we can steer the ship wherever we please. But here, in the quiet of the night, as the shadows lengthen and the world slows down, let us consider the comfort of the machine. Is there not a profound peace in knowing that the path is already laid? The surrender of the will. Imagine for a moment that your life is not a frantic struggle against the wind. Imagine that it is a gear in the great engine. We spend our days filled with the anxiety of choice. We worry about the road not taken. We worry about the mistakes we might make. We carry the heavy burden of, what if? But the mechanism whispers a different story. It says, relax. It says, the eclipse was written in the bronze 1,000 years before you were born. The winter was written in the spiral. The sunrise was written in the gold. If the stars above you are moving according to a perfect, unchangeable script, then perhaps you are too. Perhaps the beating of your heart is just another tick of the cosmic clock. Perhaps your breath is just the rising and falling of a piston in the engine of God. There is a deep, spiritual relief in this surrender. To accept the philosophy of the machine is to lay down the weight of control. It is to realize that you do not need to push the river. You do not need to spin the earth. It spins without you. It carries you. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of one's fate. To not merely endure the turning of the wheel, but to embrace it. To understand that you are exactly where you are meant to be. You are the specific tooth on the specific gear that is engaged at this specific moment in time. If you were not there, the machine would break. The universe would jam. You are essential, but you are not in charge. Let us visualize the interior of the machine again, but this time, let us expand the scale. Imagine that the wooden box is the size of a cathedral. The gears are massive, turning slowly in the vaulted darkness. They hum with a low, resonant vibration that you can feel in your bones. You are walking among them. You see the great wheel of history turning. You see the gear of nature meshing with the gear of time. You see the small, delicate escapement of a single human life clicking forward. Click, click, click. It is not a sound of entrapment. It is a sound of safety. It is the sound of a train moving on a track that was laid by a master engineer. You do not need to worry about the destination. The tracks are true. The engine is strong. All you have to do is ride. This is the gift of the Antikythera. It took the terrifying vastness of the infinite sky, a place of monsters and voids, and it reduced it to a system that fits in the palm of a hand. It made the unknowable knowable. It made the chaotic orderly. It tells us that we are held. We are held by gravity. We are held by light. We are held by the unbreakable laws of physics. We are safe inside the box. The rhythm of the eternal, the crank turns. The system engages. The anxiety of the day begins to fade away. The questions that plague us, did I do enough? What will happen tomorrow? Dissolve into the smooth, rhythmic motion of the cosmos. Tomorrow will happen as it must. The sun will rise in the sector of the ram or the bull. The moon will wax or wane. The tide will come in. The script is written, and as you lie there, drifting on the edge of sleep, you can feel the great rotation. You are part of the earth, which is a gear turning around the sun. The sun is a gear turning around the center of the galaxy. The galaxy is a gear turning in the void. Wheel within wheel within wheel. There is no randomness. There is no accident. There is only the dance. The maker of the machine knew this. When he filed the teeth of the bronze, he was not just making a calculator. He was making a prayer. He was building an altar to the idea that the universe makes sense. That is a comforting thought to take with you into the dark. The universe is not a mess. It is a masterpiece, and you are a part of it. You are woven into the bronze. You are etched into the spiral. So, go of the handle. You do not need to turn the crank. The machine runs on its own power. The momentum of the Big Bang is still driving the gears. Let the motion carry you. Feel the slow, steady turn of the bed beneath you. Feel the rotation of the room. Feel the revolution of the night. The stars are watching. The planets are aligned. The mechanism is perfect. The anxiety of choice fades into the silence. The burden of will is lifted. There is only the rhythm. Thrum, 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 the heartbeat of the universe. The heartbeat of the wooden box. Your heartbeat. They are all the same. We leave the machine now. We close the lid of the box. We latch the bronze clasp. We leave the universe safe inside, ticking softly in the dark, and we drift away, weightless, purposeless, timeless. Just another star in the great, slow turning of the night. Sleep now. It is written. The eternal rotation, the reliquary of silence. The journey is almost done. We have traveled from the storm-tossed deck of the sponge boat to the quiet depths of the ocean. We have walked the halls of the library of rust and stood in the workshop of the solitary genius. Now, we return to the present. The location is Athens, the National Archaeological Museum. It is late. The doors are locked. The crowds of tourists, with their cameras and their chatter, have long since dispersed into the city night. The lights in the great halls have been dimmed to a respectful twilight. In the center of a large, high-ceilinged room, there is a glass case. Inside the case, illuminated by a soft, focused spotlight, lie the fragments. They do not look like a machine anymore. They look like stones. They are 82 pieces of corroded bronze, green as the moss on an ancient tomb, fragile as dried leaves. They rest on velvet mounts, separated from one another, silent and still. This is the physical reality of the Antikythera Mechanism. It is a broken thing, a shattered mirror. But as we stand here in the shadows, watching the dust motes dance in the beam of light, we realize that the glass case is not a coffin. It is a chrysalis. The object inside is not dead. It is merely waiting for the mind to complete it. Close your eyes. Let the image of the green fragments fade. In the theater of your imagination, let us perform the final ritual of restoration. We strip away the verdigris. We strip away the calcium. We strip away the 2,000 years of salt and silt. We summon the digital ghost. Through the magic of our modern sight, the X-rays, the gamma rays, the tomography, we have seen the spirit of the machine. And now, we build it again in the air before us. Watch as the bronze turns from green to gold. Watch as the jagged edges smooth themselves out. Watch as the missing gears fly in from the void and click into their perfect positions. See the wood of the case reform cypress and elm, polished to a deep, lustrous shine. See the bronze dials etched with black ink. See the delicate pointers, tipped with gold and silver, reattaching themselves to the face. The machine is whole again. It floats in the darkness of your mind, perfect and pristine. It is no longer the victim of the shipwreck. It is the masterpiece of the maker. And if you listen closely, beneath the silence of the museum, beneath the noise of the modern city outside, you can hear it. Whir. The sound of the crank turning. The sound of the universe waking up. The traveler through time. Let us reflect on the journey of this object. It is a traveler, a voyager across the great ocean of time. Think of where it began. It began in the fire, in the heat of a forge in Rhodes or Syracuse, where raw ore was melted down and beaten into sheets. It was born in the sweat of the smith and the calculations of the astronomer. It was a thought that became a thing. Then, it traveled to the sea. It was carried on board a Roman galley, perhaps destined for the study of Caesar himself. It felt the sway of the waves. It smelled the salt air. It heard the songs of the sailors. Then came the storm, the violence of the wind, the terror of the crash. The machine fell into the dark. It spent 2 millennia in the abyss, while the world above burned and rebuilt itself, while empires rose and fell like tides, while languages died and new ones were born. The machine lay in the mud. It was held in the cold embrace of the deep, slowly turning into rock. It became part of the geology of the planet. And then, the resurrection, the hand of the sponge diver, the sun of the courtyard, the slow realization of the archaeologists. It has survived everything. Fire, water, earth, air. It has passed through the 4 elements and emerged on the other side. It is indestructible. Why? Because it is not just an object. It is an idea. The bronze gears can corrode. The wood can rot. But the ratio cannot be destroyed. The mathematics of the moon are eternal. The cycle of the eclipse is written into the fabric of the solar system, not just the metal. The machine is a mirror. You can break a mirror, but you cannot break the reflection. The image remains, waiting for a new surface to catch it. We stand before the glass case in Athens, but we are looking through it. We are looking past the fragments and seeing the truth. The Antikythera Mechanism was never really about the bronze. The bronze was just a copy. The bronze was just a model, a small, humble attempt to capture something infinite. The true mechanism is not in the museum. The true mechanism is outside the window. The sleep of the stars. Walk with me now, in your spirit, to the window of your room. Pull back the curtain. Look out into the night. What do you see? You see the stars. You see the moon, glowing silver in the darkness. You see the planets, wandering slowly along the ecliptic path. That is the machine. The night sky is the original clockwork. It is the engine that the old man in the workshop was trying to build. The gears are the orbits of the planets, turning silently in the vacuum of space. The teeth are the days and the nights, clicking forward one by one. The pointers are the rays of light that travel from the sun to the earth. You are not looking at a chaotic void. You are looking at the interior of a great, beautiful, silent box. And here is the most comforting thought of all. You are inside it. You are not watching the machine from the outside, turning a crank. You are a part of the mechanism. You are held safe by the gravity of the moon. You are warmed by the fire of the sun. You are carried by the rotation of the earth. You are drifting on the great ocean of time, and the ship is steady. The philosophy of the machine tells us that there is a plan. There is a rhythm. The eclipse will come, and it will pass. The seasons will change, and they will return. The stars will rise, and they will set. There is nothing you need to do. There is nothing you need to control. The crank is being turned by a hand much larger than yours. The universe is unfolding exactly as it should. So, let go. Let the weight of your body sink into the bed. Let the thoughts of the day dissolve into the shadows. Imagine yourself floating in the center of the great star field. You are weightless. You are timeless. Around you, the great gears of the galaxy are turning slowly, silently, perfectly. Mars turns. Jupiter turns. Saturn turns. They are watching over you. They are the sentinels of the night, the keepers of the time. The broken fragments in the museum are sleeping now. They have told their story. They have passed the torch back to the sky. The bronze has returned to the silence. But the rotation continues. It is the eternal rotation. It never stops. It never falters. It carries you through the night and into the morning. The gear meshes. The dream begins. You are safe in the clockwork of the gods. Sleep now. Good night.